Welcome to the show. It's the Dynasty show here on Tuesday. Tonight we've got some trades, we've got a couple questions, so we're going to be going over some of those things tonight, as well as a special guest a little later on in the show to finish it off. Mr. Evan the Cairo, we'll have him on. And he is going to go over some injuries that we've got going on right now, give us the latest updates on some injury concerns for some players right now as we are getting closer to the season here. But any questions that you do have, throw them out there in the chat. I will get to answering any questions y'all have. Diaz in the building. What up, Diaz? What is good? But yeah, we're getting closer to the season here. We've got startup season. Everybody's doing startups now as we get closer to the season. Redraft coming into play as well. But we are, of course, talking Dynasty as usual. I will start getting into some of the questions that we do have here. There are some good trade questions, as well as a couple other questions. But let's go into. So last week we did a mock draft last week. So kind of seeing where everybody is going at was definitely a good time. But there were some questions we were having as far as drafting and quarterbacks and QB2s or QB3s, and how ugly are you going, at quarterback, or do you take quarterback when the value is there? Some later guys in the draft like Tua and Jackson Dart, right? So there was a situation last week where we were in the later rounds and I wound up taking Tua as my QB3. He was still around. And took him as my QB3, and it was just a value. It was a value pick for me, right? I don't care about my starting lineup in a dynasty startup, right? I'm trying to accumulate as much value as I possibly can, and then I'm going to use that value to kind of build the team how I want to. So there's no right or wrong way to draft, of course. There's a ton of different strategies that you can use. But drafting for value, especially at the QB position, gives you a ton of options going forward and during the season and after the season. You have that value stored in a, I want to say, safe position, or safe value spot, where especially a guy like Tua, the value is not really much going to go down. He's already ranked pretty low on Keep Trade Cut, and a lot of people don't really believe in him. Obviously, last year was not a great season with injuries and such, and Dolphins just didn't play good in general. But he did lead the league in passing yards just 2 years ago. So, can he get back to form? There's a good chance his value can go up, especially if he stays healthy. So what you can do with that value and be able to buy a wide receiver, buy a running back when you need, it's very important in Dynasty. We want to get value so that we can build the team how we want to. So, one of my favorite ways to, in startup drafts, what I like to do is build around those wide receivers, especially this year. We talked about it last week. There is a ton of quarterback production that you can wait on in the draft. You can take, 2-3 wide receivers and then still get 2 very good, high-end QB2s in your dynasty startup. Depending on how you want to draft, of course, you can lock in some key positions or some key wide receivers to build around before you even get your quarterbacks, and still have good quarterbacks. So for me this year, at least in dynasty startups, I am waiting on quarterback and taking some wide receivers at the top of the draft there. Now, if you are in the early part of your startup, if you have pick 1, 2, or 3, you obviously have those big three. Those big three of Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels. Right after that, you could argue that Jamar Chase is that 104 pick, right, in your startups. So after those first 3 guys, I'm absolutely fine going wide receiver, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb. Then you've got guys like Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts. So you've got you've got a ton of guys or a ton of different strategies that you can kind of go with, but I'm leaning more towards wide receiver in the top half. I mean, wide receiver in the middle and back end of that first round into the second round, third round. I've been able to draft some great teams that I've really liked in mock drafts using that strategy. I don't like taking running back too early. I don't love how my teams wind up ending up. And I just don't like storing so much value in in such a high pick. Now, obviously, you've got the Bijans, you've got the Gibbs, and you've got the Genties. Even Omari and Hampton, really, those are kind of like the exceptions where, like, I'm okay if you want to take one of those guys early. I just prefer to stack up on the wide receivers, get some good production later on. You're still able to get a lot of those veteran guys really late, in startup. So if you start up with some elite young wide receivers that you can build around, then you can get your quarterbacks and you can still get great running back production like Derrick Henry, like Alvin Kamara. You've got a ton of guys, Chuba Hubbard, right? There's a bunch of guys that you can get later on in the draft where you don't have to spend that high pick on a running back. You can really kind of build the team, how you like to. So, when we are talking about startups, I am, of course, going for the value. Give me, the quarterbacks, give me the wide receivers, especially later on, some guys later on in the draft. And once you get deep enough, that's when you start picking up a bunch of running backs, right? Depending on how you like to draft, if I'm stacking up on wide receivers early, I will, typically, at least on my bench, I have a ton of running backs so that you can kind of plug and play, those guys in there week to week. When you need to, but always building for value, because you can always trade for whatever position that you need if you have the value in a in a position that people want. People always need quarterbacks, right? Especially during the season, in season, when you have injuries. So, when you have injuries in the season, people are going to come for those quarterbacks. So having that QB3 is always a good option to have, especially for trade bait during the season. Well, let's get into our next question. We had was, what do we think about Jackson Dart? And we did speak briefly about this last week as well. When should I take him in rookie drafts? It's kind of like that same situation with who was it? Bo Nix, JJ McCarthy. Well, JJ McCarthy still went decently early, but Michael Penix, right? These guys are getting drafted we're getting drafted so late in rookie drafts that they were such a value to get. And look at them now that their opportunities here, everybody wants them, the value shooting up. And you were getting these guys, late in your first round, or you were getting them in your second round, sometimes even middle to late second round. So when Jackson Dart is sitting there in the second round of rookie drafts, I think that is a value for you to take him there, because once he does become that starting quarterback, like we saw with Penix, with Bo Nix, with even JJ McCarthy, especially Dart, who has an elite wide receiver, people are going to want that quarterback. People are going to want Jackson Dart. People are going to be willing to pay a first for Jackson Dart. And meanwhile, you got him in a second round, or you got him in the late first. So he's just a value guy that you want to take. He's a quarterback in a super flex league. The value is there. You need to take these quarterbacks. They are going to be worth more than any player that you pick in that second round. Unless they turn out to be some kind of stud, Puka Nacua, you're going to be able to trade that quarterback at some point in time for anybody in that second round. And plus, you can get anything, you can get things on top of that. So, for Dart, I like I said last week, I don't know how good he's going to be. I have no idea if he's going to be good or not, if he will be the starter for the future, but the opportunity is there, and people love that opportunity. They want that next big thing. People were going crazy for, Tommy Cutlets, right? So, I mean, people are going to like Dart once he is the starting quarterback. Now, how long does that take to happen? How good is Russell Wilson going to make this team? Is Russell Wilson even going to play the full season, depending on how good that team is doing? So, that is to be determined, but we definitely want to get into, some Jackson Dart, especially if he's fallen in the second round. of rookie drafts. Can you somehow trade up and go grab Jackson Dart if he's still sitting there at the 205, 206, even like early second? Like I'm taking Jackson Dart, and we see time and time again that value at the quarterback position where nobody wants it right off the bat because everybody's just unsure, right? Bo Nix, Michael Penix, JJ McCarthy, right? Guys that are going later in the draft. It's the same situation with Dart. At some point in time, they're going to get the value to come up once they are the starting quarterback. So I think we're taking Dart easy in any second round of Superflex rookie drafts. All right, let's get into, we've got a bunch of trade questions that we've got here as well. So we're going to get into some trades. Let's pull up the first one here. Actually, there's a couple other. All right. McDermott, 65-63. Is there a strategy for lineups if the team is playing Rodgers? Should I play DK in the flex, even though he's not my projected best play? So not necessarily strictly a dynasty question, but no, I mean, there's not really a strategy for it. I mean, you could play DK in the flex just if, Rodgers goes to DK, at least you're kind of making up those points, but it really depends on what your other option is. If it's someone at equal to DK, then yeah, fine, I'm okay with playing DK. But I'm not really going out of the way, especially if he's not like my starter. I'm going to play my best player available regardless. What if Rodgers gets shut down and then, DK does nothing, and now you have not good enough points in that position when you could have played someone else that you normally do. So I'm not going out of my way at all to, play a wide receiver that's with another, that's playing a quarterback on the other team on my opponent. So I'm not too worried about that. All right, Cody Cox, 103 for Swift and the 106. Need a lot of RB help. So when you're talking about the rookie draft, you want to draft for the best player available, right? You always want the best player available. You don't want to attack a certain position. You can use, that excuse, but especially high up in the draft, you kind of want the best player available. And Swift and the 106 is just not good enough for me to move from the 103, where that is either Omarion Hampton or Tet or Travis Hunter. Like, it's just not enough for me to move all the way to the 106. Like, I would need more like I don't even know, maybe like a James Cook type. Like, I need someone that is valued a lot higher than Swift just to go from the 103, to the 106. Can you split the 103 into 2 first-round picks? I don't know what this guy with the 106 has, but, can I get the 106 and the 107 or, 106, 108? Like, I need more than just DeAndre Swift. I don't have a ton of faith in Swift. There's a few running backs in that room. Ben Johnson has already had DeAndre Swift. We know he's not getting the workload. We know we can't handle the workload. We saw that in Detroit, and then they went out and got Gibbs while they still had Swift, and Monty, on the squad. So yeah, I just need more here than Swift and the 106. So I'm just keeping the 103. There's a chance you get Omarion Hampton there. What is the guy at 102 taking? So, yeah, I'm not making this trade. I need more than that. DS says, speaking of the QBs, let's talk about the QB horde and how not to play it. My opinion, you have to sell the QB people are willing to buy, not who the QB hoarder only want to sell. Otherwise, they won't pay the iron price. You will be left holding all that value, wasted years of assets. Yeah, I agree, 100% Diaz. So in the example kind of I was given, I think my quarterbacks were Josh Allen, Jared Goff, and Tua. So, nobody really wants Tua right now. Right. So you're right. We have to sell what we can get the most for. And typically it's not the guy that you want to sell. Typically it's one of the other guys that you have, who wants to pay for what, is huge. So in my situation where I had Allen and Goff, like I would be more, I would have to move Josh Allen for a ton or even Jared Goff for a ton before I can move Tua. Like nobody wants to pay, that price. So you do have to move the QBs that people want to buy, right? You can't just, hold on and only sell the guys that you want to sell because a lot of times people don't want those guys. That's why you don't want them. That's why you want to sell them because not everybody wants that player. So yeah, that's always big. Diaz, I agree. You do need to trade the quarterback that people want. But yeah, Cody, I need more for the 103 in this situation. I'd rather just hold on to the 103 unless you can split the 103 into 2 first-round picks, where you can pick up 2 running backs. I'm not doing it. You should be able to get more for the 103 there. All right, next questions we have here from Bay Area 510. And this is from the Discord. 12-team Superflex, star 10. Jackson, Mixon, a 26 first and 2 26 thirds. And he's getting back CMC, Penix, London, a 27 first and a 26 second. So we are basically swapping first in 26 and 27. We're getting a second, and then we're getting the Penix and London stack combination as well as CMC. So I actually don't mind this. If you're splitting Lamar into, and we could just like eliminate the picks, for sake. I mean, of course, I'd rather have the second, but 26, 27 first, you can say, okay, we'll cancel that out. We'll cancel out the second and the 2/3, and you're looking at Lamar and Mixon for CMC, Penix, and London, or Lamar, Mixon, and 2/3 for CMC, Penix, London, and a second. Yes, I will take the London Penix side on that. If I'm going to tear down from Lamar, it's going to be for something like this, where I'm getting a top wide receiver, an elite young wide receiver with a young quarterback. Now, obviously, Penix is not going to give you Lamar production, right? He's more of a pocket quarterback, not a ton of rushing upside at all. But he is going to give you, at least we're hoping that he gives you good production. We did see good things the last few games last year. Drake London, who turned it up, at the end of the season with Penix there. Now they're going to get a full off-season training camp, to work together and, be more familiar with each other. So, yeah, I mean, I really like this trade. You're getting a game changer, a possible league winner in CMC if he can stay healthy. And you're also getting Penix and London. You're losing your 26 first, but you're gaining a 27, which is fine. And then you're giving up 2/3 for a second. So I love this trade right here. It's a perfect tear down, from Lamar. I just love the way that this trade worked out. So you've got young assets and value also. You have value in Penix, you have value in London. So, even though you lost Lamar, you've made up for it in points, spreading out your roster and getting you some value, on your squad as well. So I do like that. That's a good trade, Bay Area. All right, Xavier 11, 12-team Superflex, start 11. This is a 1.5 tight end premium. He says he is a heavy contender. We've got a 2026 late first. We've got 2 2027 late firsts and Judkins for Trey McBride and Egbuka. So we're giving up basically 3 firsts here. Projected late first. He says he is a heavy contender. And Judkins, who is going through his whole situation. I do like him kind of as a buy low here, but you're getting Trey McBride and you're getting Egbuka. So 1.5 tight end premium, you're getting Trey McBride, who, is right there with Brock Bowers as far as the top tight ends. And you're getting Egbuka, who is an up and coming, at least we hope to be star wide receiver who people and teammates and quarterbacks and coaches are raving about, how good Ibuka is, how NFL ready he is, to step right in. You've got injuries to Godwin. You've got, old age in Mike Evans. He's had hamstring issues, as he's getting older here as well. So there could be plenty of playing time here for Ibuka. So I actually like this trade. Now, I don't love giving up all the firsts. I don't love giving up your 26. I don't love giving up 227s, especially in the start 11 where you can really kind of, tear down from those if you need to. But you are a heavy contender. You obviously have the assets to spend. So I'm okay spending these assets, especially if I'm a heavy contender already. Give me the top production in Trey McBride. Give me the young upcoming star, in Ibuka. So I actually do like the, McBride Ibuka side on this. And if you were, on the other side of it, I don't hate that either. I'm fine getting 3 firsts, and Judkins as well. But you could argue that Trey McBride is worth at least 2 firsts, right? If not more. And you could argue that Ibuka is worth definitely at least 1 first. But after this season, he might be worth 2 firsts, depending on what happens this season. So, you are getting still plenty of value in McBride and Ibuka. And if things went wrong and you had to start breaking down the team, you can definitely make up, some of those firsts with, these players here if you had to sell them. So, I am going with the McBride and Ibuka side on this one here. Kev, what up, Kev? What's goody, Kevin? Man, we're getting closer and closer to the season. I'm itching over here. All right, looks like I've got 2 more trades to go over here. On a work trip. Nice. We're getting close. Yeah, we are getting close. I think I've got one more startup that we'll do. I think it'll be one more subscriber league. It'll be a cheap one. I think like we did the last one. I think it was 25 each. But so yeah, possibly one more startup here for me. We had a good mock last week. We might do another one. We might do another one next year. I mean, we might do another one next week. My bad. Might do another one next week, but and then we'll get into, I guess, a little bit of redraft before the season starts. But we've got rankings. I got rankings that'll be coming out next week. I'll try and make some videos for those as well. Maybe we'll do on some of the lives as well. We did wide receivers already. So if you didn't see the wide receiver rankings and tiers, you can go back, check the YouTube for that. That we did a few weeks ago. But a lot of movement wide receiver wise. We've got rookies in there now. There's a huge tier of like wide receiver 2s that we have now. So yeah, we've got a lot going on getting into the end of the season. We'll get into the beginning of the season here, or end of training camp and all that good stuff. All right, let's get into our next trade here. We've got M. Monto 25. We've got A. Rich, AD Mitchell, Ibuka. 3 2026 firsts, and a 2027 first, and you get back T. Higgins, Nico Collins, and Ricky Pearsall. This is a tough one. You got a total of 4 firsts here, and Ibuka, so you could argue 5 firsts. And we're getting Nico, Pearsall, Higgins, and a 3rd. That is a lot, and I don't think I'm doing that. That's giving up a ton and having a ton of faith that T. Higgins, number 1, stays healthy, and number 2, still produces, as he did last year when he was healthy, and it's putting a ton in, Ricky Pearsall as well. Like, are we expecting Pearsall to be a wide receiver 1? I mean, Ayuk, even at his best, was not even a wide receiver one for fantasy. He was a good, very, very good, high end wide receiver two with that wide receiver one upside, but he wasn't a wide receiver one every week on a consistent basis, at least fantasy wise. So that's tough because you could Nico is worth probably 2+ first, but I'm not spending all that for T. Higgins, Nico, Pearsall, and a third. I think I'm holding on to the Edbuka and the first side. If I want to go buy a elite wide receiver, in that Nico area, I'd rather go a little bit higher, right? Do I just go with, do I just give up the I don't like you don't need T. Higgins and Pearsall, I don't believe, in this trade. Like if you want to go for Nico, you want an elite wide receiver. Okay, let's go for Nico. What does he cost? Does he cost 2 firsts and AD Mitchell and A Rich? Like, okay, fine. But I'm not giving up Egbuka and 3 2026 first with a 2027 first to get back, Nico Collins and T. Higgins and Pearsall. Like I need at least 2 elite wide receivers, and you're not getting that here. What do you guys think in the chat here? T. Higgins, Nico, Pearsall on a third, or you taking the 4 firsts, Egbuka, AD Mitchell, and A Rich? Like, I feel like I'd rather want to hold on to A Rich because the value is just so low that we want that value to go up before we try and trade him, try and recoup him, that value somehow, some way. AD Mitchell isn't really worth anything. So, you can exit him out of the equation of just looking at the trade here. But I mean, 4 firsts and Egbuka, and you're getting Nico, Higgins, and Pierce. I just feel like it's not enough. Let me know what you guys think, but I just don't feel like it's enough, for me to give up all of that to get back, Nico, Higgins, and Pearsall. Can I just give up the 3 firsts for Nico and T. Higgins? Like, yeah, it's just too much. I'm just not doing all that. And then we've got one more trade to go through. And then we do have a guest that'll be coming on here shortly. We are going to talk some injuries, latest injuries on some players. So we got an injury update coming through to end the show here from about 10:15 to 10:30. So we'll get into some injuries here. But all right. Last trade here we have, it is a good one, and it is tough. So let's get into this trade here from Fantasy Football Big Guy. 12-team Superflex, start 10. Right? We've got T. Higgins, Chuba Hubbard, and Puka. And getting back in return, Justin Jefferson, J.J. McCarthy, and Dylan Sampson. Right? We know what's going on with Judkins right now. Well, we don't really know what's going to really happen with Judkins, but most likely, at least for the first half of the season, and maybe even the whole season, depending on what happens with Judkins, Sampson is going to have a role. He's going to have an opportunity, along with Jerome Ford there. I don't believe he's going to, take over the backfield at all, but I think there'll be a decent little, 1-2 punch. He's going to get some opportunity. J.J. McCarthy and Justin Jefferson, you're getting the stack there, but you're also giving up Puka, you're giving up Chuba, you're giving up Higgins. So you're giving up, some good players there. Now, with Puka, we obviously have the Stafford injury, and, Evan will be on here shortly. We'll talk about Stafford, and what, that injury that he's dealing with and what he feels there. But Chuba's been a very cheap, basically giving you RB1 production when he's healthy there. And the same thing with T. Higgins. So in this particular trade, and we'll go into, some of the current team here. So it's Higgins, Chuba, and Puka, Jefferson, McCarthy, and Sampson. You're getting the quarterback. So it's a good place to, store that value. And we just talked a little bit earlier about some of these quarterbacks here. So, if you do make this trade now, do you sell one of your other quarterbacks, right? So this current team has Josh Allen, Bo Nix, Geno Smith at QB. We have Alvin Kamara, Chuba Hubbard, Charbs at running back, CeeDee Lamb, Puka, Amon-Ra St. Brown, T. Higgins, Khalil Shakir, and then McBride also to finish out this squad. So we'll be adding another quarterback. So it'd be the fourth quarterback. You got Allen, Nix, Geno, and then you're also getting JJ McCarthy here. So when you look at the full picture and you look at the team, do you make this trade? And, like we talked about before, maybe you hold on to JJ McCarthy, but also people do want to buy JJ McCarthy also. But you do have Bo Nix sitting there, which, a lot of people love Bo Nix. He had a great season last year as a rookie. Sutton gets the contract. They draft a good rookie, at least we hope to be. We've got some running backs in that RB room now. So it's still so hard for this trade here. I'm leaning towards the Jefferson side, just depending on what you think you might be able to do with Bo Nix. But at the same time, it's like you're giving up a lot in Puka and Higgins and Chuba to get Justin Jefferson and then JJ McCarthy, which you already have quarterbacks. The problem is you're going to be running a little not really depth at running back position if you give up Chuba here. So what can you get for one of your quarterbacks, right? I actually would like to trade. If you do make this trade, I like it if maybe you hold on to JJ McCarthy. Maybe you trade Bo Nix for a running back. Right? Maybe you trade Bo Nix for a top running back there. Is that one of the better routes to go? Depending on what you can do with Bo Nix. Let's pull up some running backs here. Does Bo Nix get you into the Travion Henderson, Bucky Irving, Chase Brown, Kyron Williams, who just got a contract? Right? Does it get you into that range? And maybe you get a plus on top of that because it's a quarterback. So I think it really depends on what moves you can make after this, really. Especially if you're concerned, about Puka. Or do you just say, you know what, I'm going to hold still. I've got Puka, I've got Higgins, I've got Chuba. There's no need for me really to go up and get a Justin Jefferson since I've already got CD, Puka, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Maybe I just stay put. So you can look at it from a few different angles here. But yeah, I think the only way really I'm making this trade if I've got really something lined up, I feel like, for a top-ish running back by moving a Bo Nix and then just rolling with Geno Smith and JJ McCarthy as as your QB2. But yeah, that's another tough one. Because I do still have faith in Puka, even without Stafford. Like, Puka was never a huge touchdown guy. He doesn't score a ton of touchdowns. So, he's mostly catching the ball, run after the catch, right? The yak is crazy. So that would be really the only tough part about this. But like, you could argue Puka and Chuba is basically enough for Jefferson. And then it's basically JJ McCarthy, the quarterback, for a T. Higgins. Can we trust T though? Can we trust T? We haven't been able to trust him staying healthy. I mean, when he's out there, he's giving you great production, but how much is he really going to be out there? Like, this is a tough one. What do you guys think in the chat? Like, what are you going with here? Which side you going with? Is it Higgins, Chuba, and Puka, or is it Jefferson, McCarthy, and Sampson? 12-team Superflex, start 10. I think being that the rest of his team is really solid, Allen, Nix, Geno at QB, CD, Puka, Amon-Ra, St. Brown, T. Higgins, Shakir. I mean, you could argue to stay. You could argue to stay put. But all right, we are getting into the final portion of the show here. We've got our man Evan the Cairo in the building.
What's going on? How are you?
What's up, Evan? How's everything?
You can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, perfect. What's going on? How are you?
Yeah, we are good. Just getting towards the end of the show here. Want to talk some injuries, see what we have going on. Evan is our kind of injury guy here lately, so we appreciate you coming on. But yeah, just introduce yourself quickly. Tell everybody where they can find you at. I do have the link for his Instagram down below in the description. But yeah, tell us a little bit about what you do, Evan.
Yeah, so I'm a chiropractor student. I'm going into my third year. It's a 4-year program. I'm based out of Canada, so Toronto. But I am super big into the NFL, and that's such. We don't have teams here, but I am a super big Steelers fan, and I've just kind of developed more of a love for injury and sport. I've played sports my whole life. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Evan the Cairo. Super easy, no caps, nothing too special there.
Nice. All right. Well, what do you got for us today? Who are we going to be talking about on some of these latest injuries here?
Yeah, for sure. There's always, when you go into preseason, there's always going to be, what I like to say, there's always going to be at least one starter that's most likely going to be injured for at least a couple games, just due to sheer amount of work in the preseason. Again, in a couple of my videos I've posted, the teams usually overreact, especially with that Justin Fields. I don't know if you were updated with that. That Justin Fields kind of proportion injury got blown out of proportion there. Got carted off the field. Everyone was thinking it was Achilles, whatever it was, but it was just a toe dislocation, and he's back on the field already playing. Maybe affecting his play right now. Heard he's not been doing that well in the past couple of days. But yeah, just to kind of break it down, I have a few kind of injuries that I've spoken about a little bit on my page. We'll break it down a little bit more. So Matthew Stafford, he's had a little bit of back soreness. He's seen a spine specialist, so their doctor at the Los Angeles Rams, he's seen him. And I think it was back in 2018, he had a couple transverse process fractures. Transverse process fractures, TVPs, are just part of your spine. So there's the main spine right here, for example, and there's these two little pillars that come outside of the spine attaching to it. For example, if my head's where the spine is, there's just two little pillars that come out. That's where your TVPs are. He fractured those in 2018, and ever since then, he's always had a little bit of back soreness. Again, he's super old. I think he's 37, if I'm not mistaken. So pushing that boundary a little bit. But Sean McVay said he's good to go. They're just doing more of a precautionary kind of thing here, and did say that if they did have a real game, for example, tomorrow, he would be playing in it. So again, it's not really something to worry about, in my opinion, and in my, I think in my sheet, I have him as a mild to moderate risk. If you are drafting him, which again affects Puka Nacua, which is a big one right there, and also Kyren Williams.
Right. Yeah, we just saw Kyren get a contract too. So that is interesting for him. But yeah, I mean, Stafford is a guy who's been just so tough, right? He's been able to play through, almost anything. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he like dislocated his shoulder and still threw a touchdown pass. You see that reel going on Instagram sometimes, and it's crazy. But he's always been a tough guy. So that's the hard part is, being how old he is. Like, I don't know how much longer we really can expect him to play. And especially dynasty wise, that affects like Puka Nakua so much, being that he's so young. Like, can we trust a quarterback going forward? Like, once Stafford is done, when is he going to hang it up? And, is this injury going to, allow him to not play maybe as long as he wants to? So, it's good to hear, at least, from you, that we don't, expect too much out of it, and we hope that he's going to be okay. So that is good to hear. But yeah, just definitely his toughness for sure makes you feel a little bit more comfortable about the situation. But I mean, in all honesty, you have to have, I guess, a little precaution, right? Do you just stay away from, Puka altogether, right? Do you just go for like a, Nico Collins or Neighbors instead? Do you just stay away from it, to play it safe? And that's the kind of, player, depending on the type of player that you are and the risk that you want to take, do you just kind of avoid him, altogether?
Yeah, for sure. Again, Malik Neighbors is a special topic too, because I have I have him in a couple of Dynasty leagues as well, so I'm super high on him. A little biased, but he has been dealing with a turf toe injury. Again, you hear that name, you hear that kind of injury being popped out on social media, left, right, and center. Very common in football athletes. It is a hyperextension injury. So, for example, if this is your big toe and these are rested toes, it kind of comes up like this. So when you're landing, it comes up. So as you can imagine, that ball of your foot, which we call the plantar plate ligament, kind of overstretches and possible a little bit of tears, which is why that's called the turf toe. It's usually a lingering issue, which is something that Malik Neighbors is dealing with right now. And apparently he's been dealing with it since college at LSU. So it's something that you have to keep an eye on. Again, I'm not fading him. Very similar to Justin Jefferson, where that hamstring injury came into play. I think it was a week ago, where he did have that hamstring sprain. But again, today, very good news. I saw on Twitter he was jogging around at practice. Looks more precautionary. Again, for both of them, I do have them on my sheet as a mild to moderate risk. Nothing too high or anything like that. And something very similar to Justin Jefferson, hamstring injuries, very common in wide receivers or running backs, just because of that explosiveness, right?
Right.
AJ Brown was similar. AJ Brown, I believe, just popped up on the injury report where he did have hamstring tightness. And again, this is something that he has dealt with previously. So it is a little bit more of a risk, I'd say. But it does seem more precautionary. It didn't seem like it was a grade 2 or grade 3. It just seemed like a grade 1 tweak. But all these players should be good to go for week 1, which is, positive news. I wouldn't be fading them at all. Again, I would just have, in my opinion, I have Justin Jefferson and Malik Neighbors kind of in that same tier. I don't know if you have them in the same tier as well.
Yeah, at least dynasty wise, yeah, we're definitely in the same tier for Jefferson and Neighbors. There, Neighbors just so young and just has a ton of opportunity. I'm still taking Jefferson over Neighbors, but I can't argue with anyone who wants to go Neighbors over Jefferson, almost solely based on the age. But I mean, Justin Jefferson is just such a elite talent prospect player. He's just automatic. Doesn't matter who the quarterback is, and you could credit that to the offensive system as well. But yeah. Who else do we have here for injuries, Evan?
We have Kenneth Walker III. I know last year his season got cut short due to that ankle foot. They never really specified what it was. So in my opinion, I was assuming it was more of a high ankle sprain, which is kind of, I broke it down in my most recent video where Khalil Shakir, exactly who had it, he has a high ankle sprain. It's where your tibia and fibula, so there's a syndesmosis, which is kind of like ligaments that kind of attach your tibia and your fibula, which are your two shin bones together. And there's also a bunch of ligaments connecting that tibia or fibula to your ankle. This is where your high ankle sprain comes into play. Again, I'm just assuming, don't quote me on that, because Kenneth Walker, they didn't really tell us any details regarding it. But again, he's been out of practice since I think it was August 2nd, feeling that kind of soreness. But some great news today was that he was seen at practicing. So again, I don't see any real issue there with week 1, but I do have this on kind of a re-injury risk where once you injure it once, very similar to your hamstring or any kind of soft tissue injury, hamstring, calf, like Jawan Jennings, there is a high risk of reoccurring and re-injury. But again, it's good that I saw him out at practice, or we were able to kind of see some footage at him at practice. So yeah, that's another one. And then also, I don't know how high we are on this quarterback, but Anthony Richardson.
Okay.
I know his season last year was kind of up and down, and it got cut short, obviously, with that shoulder injury. So that shoulder injury was mainly an AC joint, so a acromioclavicular joint. So it's going to be where your clavicle meets your acromion. So it's going to be right about here on your shoulder, but his is on his right shoulder. Okay. He kind of came in, he got surgery over the offseason. He was looking decent from what I saw. And then during one practice, I believe, just kind of stepped away, and kind of it was much more, quote unquote, I believe, stiffer. So they're just keeping an eye on that. And another hamstring injury was rookie Cam Scatabo with New York Giants. I don't think it's anything serious again, but again, a risk that I do have moderate to mild when you are drafting in fantasy, just because those hamstring injuries can be lingering and can impact the rest of your season.
Yeah. Going back to Kenneth Walker real quick. He's a guy that's just – he's always been injured. You know, he's a great running back. We want to see him on the field, but he's always got some injury concerns. He's still yet to give us an RB1 season. You know, so for me, like I fade Kenneth Walker unless I'm getting him at a crazy discount or at a value. I just kind of stay away from it just because he can never really always put it together. And then like Sharps is there too, and he's been great in the absence of Kenneth Walker. So with Kenneth Walker, I'm always a little scared for that. But is this injury to Kenneth Walker, is this something that he's kind of had before, like over and over, or is this something like totally separate and we should just kind of not worry at all?
Yeah, so from the news, I believe it's the same issue that he was dealing with last year. Again, they didn't really specify the details, which is super annoying.
Right.
They just said it was a foot ankle from last year.
Okay.
So again, in my opinion, I would assume it's a high ankle sprain. Don't quote me on that. But again, this year, same thing, foot/ankle, I should say. They didn't give us any specificity. So I'm thinking it is the same issue because he was put on IR and the season got cut short last year. So there's possibility it is lingering over to next season. Very similar to, I think it was, Khalil Shakir, who had that high ankle sprain last year on the same ankle as right ankle. And again, just popped up on the injury report 2 days ago, high ankle sprain, that same ankle. Again, with the high ankle sprain, it's dependent on the severity of it, but usually it's going to be about 4 to 6 weeks, which brings us right to week 1.
Yeah, Shakir is kind of another one where like I'm okay just kind of staying away from it, just not really taking the chance on him. Like I don't feel like his production is good enough for you to like reach, or like I'm just okay taking someone else in that area. I mean, he was wide receiver 37 last year, something in that range. 100 targets, 76 catches for 821, 4 touchdowns. I just feel like you can find that elsewhere. Like there's not really a reason to take risk on, drafting Shakir, really. I don't know if he's going to do much better than what he did last year, right? Does Keon Coleman take that next step up? Does Dalton Kincaid take that next step up? So for me, I'm just totally fading Shakir, especially with the injury news. Now. I know you spoke about AJ Brown with the hammy. I guess like the older guys worry me with hammies. I wouldn't necessarily characterize AJ Brown as an older guy, but guys like Mike Evans, who had a hamstring injury last year, right? Should we be going into this season being a little bit precautionary with like a Mike Evans?
Yeah, for sure. Again, I forget the stat. I had it in my most recent video. I think it was, don't quote me on that, but I forget the stat of reoccurrence. And we saw it with Mike Evans. He's had a hamstring injury before and came back again. There's a good chance with those soft tissue injuries and how explosive these guys are being asked to be, especially at that professional level, that they are going to possibly sprain it again. So there is that possibility with AJ Brown and Justin Jefferson. I hate to say it, but again, in my opinion, I would probably draft a few others like Nico Collins, like Puka. Again, with the Matthew Stafford, there's a little bit less. I would put Nico Collins a little bit higher, but there's always, I would say, you could look at somebody else, but if he's falling to you at that, 107 for Justin Jefferson or 108, I'd gladly pick him there. But again, those are two players that I would be semi-concerned about, especially missing possibly 1 or 2 games. With your first round pick or first couple round of picks, you don't want to have them miss games. So yeah, I would definitely be worried about that. Again, they're considered quote unquote day-to-day. I don't think they're going to play anymore in preseason, which is another possibility where if they jump straight back into the games, they can possibly tear it because they aren't used to those normal reps.
Right. Yeah, I think Justin Jefferson could be a value in drafts, redraft and dynasty, really, with the injury, because some people just might not want to take that chance.
For sure.
So, all right, you've got any other injury updates before we kind of wrap it up here?
I don't think anything else that's major. Obviously, with the Najee Harris, I'm looking at my sheet. Sorry.
Yeah, Najee with the eye thing, which was, I felt that whole situation was just kind of weird at first. And now, like, it's like they don't. Is he getting ready to? Is he going to be back week 1? Like, is it that bad? Like, what's wrong with his eye? Is there any other information, that you have about his situation?
I wish I did, honestly. I wish I knew what happened. I know it was a firework accident, similar to JPP, I guess, in that instance. But again, they said that there's no, I guess, like no timeline, which is kind of weird in a sense. Again, the eye is a super sensitive area. So again, I'd be fading him all day. Again, I'm not a big Najee Harris guy as well. So again, a little bit more bias. I'm super high on Omarion Hampton. But the positive here is Najee Harris hasn't really had any injury previously or injuries previously that has kept him out. He's been able to play most games, I think almost every game at the Steelers. So again, that's just a issue where it's hard to say because there's been no information given. I know he was seen on the field with a weighted vest. I think it was today or yesterday. So that is a positive news. I would expect him to possibly play week 1.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. He has not missed a game his whole 4 years in the league. I know, and like I said, it was his first or second season. He was talking about the yoga that he does that allows him to be able to kind of to bend and everything. So he says he doesn't really get injured as much. So yeah, I mean, he's had 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons. I mean, quietly is a decent running back here. But yeah, going in there now with Omarion Hampton coming in, great prospect, first round draft pick. Like, they're going to give this guy the ball, especially more towards the second half of the season. And even now where Najee's out, like, it gives Hampton the opportunity to learn the offense, play in the offense. Like, Najee hasn't been in that offense, so he's actually coming in behind, Omarion Hampton. So the coaches could have that faith in Hampton and give him the majority of that work. So.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. I think we are pretty much wrapped up here. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here?
No. I think we kind of covered mostly pretty quickly, which is good.
Yeah.
Again, I have a lot of these broken down in more of a detailed version if you guys want to see that. But yeah.
Yeah, and those detailed versions, you can follow Evan at Evan the Cairo. Link is in the description here, so he can give you all your fantasy injury updates. Marty, what up, Marty? It's been a while, brother. What's up? But yeah, I mean, follow us on Instagram. Get with us on YouTube here. Typically, we're on every Tuesday night, 9:30 Eastern. We might change that to Wednesday, so just stay tuned for that. But we're typically on every week, so answering all Dynasty questions, trades, injury questions. We'll see if we can get Evan on here a little more and go over injuries pretty much with us weekly here. But other than that, appreciate everybody for coming out, watching the show. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Hit that like button, smash that subscribe if you're new, and we will see y'all next week. Peace.